Hey there, everybody. So today in the fatigue fix, we are speaking about why your test results are always normal, yet you still feel like garbage. Now, this is something that is so common, and it was honestly one of the things that was my most frustrating thing, the thing that made me feel so hopeless in ever being able to find the answers to my problems. And for me, that was specifically thyroid issues and fatigue. And it was absolutely daunting and so disappointing to deal with every single time you go to the doctor. So if you are not new here, let me rephrase that. If you are new here, I just want to introduce myself. If you've not heard me speak about this kind of thing, if you've not been listening to any of the lives or replaying them, just let me know, comment below that you're new. But if that is the case, I want to just introduce myself. My name is Tiffany. I'm a board certified and licensed nutritionist, and I came to do what I do now because I struggled, similar to you, with debilitating fatigue, frustrating symptoms with anxiety, depression, poor sleep. I had some joint pain, and I struggled with an undiagnosed thyroid condition, eventually being diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And then that kind of started all over again for me. And my constant struggle to get better was there's barriers up for me all over the place. And one of the biggest barriers was getting normal tests back all the time. Basically, coming away from doctor's appointments, I have been in tears. I've been on calls to my mom and my sister crying about, why do I feel this way? Even though they say everything is completely normal, there's nothing wrong with me. You start to feel like you are a hypochondriac. You start to feel like you're crazy, for lack of a better word. And it is absolutely super daunting. But I always came away with several options for prescription medications. And I'm not against prescription medications if you need them, but that was the only answer. So I am here today because of that experience to help you so you don't have to go down that road. So it was kind of short notice to say, get your lab tests if you did have them. So if you're watching this on the replay, make sure to comment below that you were watching on the replay. If you have your test results that you're going to watch or to kind of go through this so that you can, listen to what I'm talking about and compare them to your test results, go ahead and do that and maybe comment below that, yeah, my tests are normal, but they're actually not normal. And, feel some vindication here. I know one of the first times that I went to a provider that was actually more in a functional space, and I had all my labs with me. I had all my symptoms, of course. It was a 2-hour appointment, went through all body systems. And she said to me, there is no reason that you would feel good. Like, it makes sense that you feel the way that you feel. No wonder you feel this terrible. And I started to cry because it was finally like vindication. Someone understood me. Someone was looking at my labs in the correct way. So I want to go through that with you. And it looks like I'm unable. Let me just see something. I think I can share my screen here. I'll see if it works. Okay. It's not going to work. Shoot, too many blocks on here. Let me see. Let's see here. Okay. I'm going to try to log in to something else here to see if it'll work. But basically what I wanted to do is to start off going over a thyroid panel. And what I'm going to do is explain to you what normal test results look like and then what optimal test results look like. Okay, so I'm logging into my actual set of tests. And let's see. If you have these, or if you don't, of course, you can go back and look and then reference this video later and see where yours fall in. So of course, there's a laundry list of testing here. So I'm just going to get to the meat of them for you and go from here. So, okay. I'm going to share again. Okay, so I'm going to be scrolling through this kind of quickly. I hope you can see that. I have no indication if this is showing up for you or not. But we're going to go through a couple of the tests. So the focus I'm going to look at is a free T4 number. This is part of the thyroid panel. And here's the thing. First of all, this report is kind of all over the boards on it. So I have to just scroll to get to the other numbers. And your free T4 number, the reference range is 0.9 to 2.2. Basically, anything in that range is going to be good for you if you're within the range, and probably in that middle of the range is more ideal. Free T4 is the unbound, inactive form of your thyroid hormone. Okay, so this is the thyroid hormone that is the most prevalent, but is also the least active. And so it needs to be converted into something called free T3. And I have to go down here to find it. And it is, the normal range is 2.3 to 3.4, or 4.2. The ranges will look a little bit different depending on where you get your labs drawn. So, don't worry about that. But mine was at a 3.4, experiencing a little bit of fatigue. So I needed to, based on these numbers, my provider added more of my thyroid medication, my T3 thyroid medication, so that I could, start to have better energy. And it was just kind of like a normal low level of energy throughout the day. It got to be a really stable low level of energy, and I haven't had that for a long time, but it was because this number had come down from the last time. So T3 is your more active thyroid hormone. So that is a really important number to have. Your free T4 and your free T3, very important to have. Unfortunately, the free T3 is not something that is tested on a regular basis, which is really frustrating. And if you're struggling to get a full thyroid panel, you can reach out to me. I can help you access your own. And then the next number, and I'm just going to go through these just because they're here. These are the two types of antibodies for thyroid. If you have not had an antibody check for your thyroid ever, you probably should get a baseline. The problem is a lot of providers won't do one unless you have just a laundry list of symptoms, and it might be something they'll add on. And I'm understanding from people when I talk to people that their doctors will say that they don't really mean anything. They don't tell you how to do anything different with it. And I think a lot of providers don't really know how to handle the results of these numbers because they don't deal with it anything other than what they've been taught in medical school. And what they've been taught is to look at the TSH. So two things, the TSH, which is the hormone, or it's an indicator of how well the pituitary gland in your brain is talking to your thyroid gland in your neck. It's all that number shows you. It does not tell you how much hormone you have in your body. And then the free T4 is the level, like I said, of unbound, inactive thyroid hormone. But that needs to be converted. And if it's not converting properly into T3, that is the problem. But a lot of people don't even get the free T3 checked. So if you have enough free T4, but it isn't converting it into free T3, your number might be 2.0 or 1.2 or something like that of free T3. And you're tired, that right there is a classic indication that you might need some T3 medication, and you need to find a provider who will get that for you. So going back to the antibodies, sorry, I can go off on a tangent on all these tests and scenarios that I've seen over time with myself and with people I work with. But the thyroglobulin antibodies, there's two kinds. There's TGA, sometimes how they just abbreviate it, and then there's TPO antibodies. So they should be, depending on the range, less than 1, or they should be 0. Mine actually has been 0 with the thyroid peroxidase antibody, and it creeped up a little bit this time. So that's a sign. It's not a huge issue. It's not a diagnosis of Hashimoto's or anything like that at this point. And I don't know if that's what I had prior to having the thyroid gland removed from my body. But what that tells us is that there's a little inflammation of some kind going on there? And from what, I don't really know. Is it from, an autoimmune process? Is it something, stress related? What is going on with that? Okay, so I'm going to go down, see if I can find my TSH number. And my TSH number is going to look very different because mine is suppressed from cancer treatment. And so my number is going to look pretty darn low. Don't know where it is. There it is. 0.01. And so I know a lot of times providers will kind of be concerned if there's a low level of TSH. So in general, the lower, or maybe I'll do it the other way. The higher the number, even within the normal range, the worse a person feels. So if your TSH was 3.5, you probably would feel pretty tired. If it is 8 or 10, you're probably feeling pretty miserable. The lower the number goes, the more maybe hyperthyroid you might behave. And that might look like, jitteriness, anxiety. It could be in extreme cases where you have extreme weight loss and that kind of thing. But for me, this is because of suppression for cancer. There are people that are afraid of TSH being that low for too long because of heart issues or bone health. And there hasn't been a lot of actual current research on that is thinking that we're need to be concerned about that. So the TSH number, if that's all you get, and if it's in the top end of the range, you need to get someone to look at that. Okay. The ideal range for TSH, so this is the optimal range, is 0.5 to 1.5. That's where you want to be to live in a place where you feel probably more energy, where you have better cognitive function, where you're lower in the brain fog situation. That is what you need to be looking at. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing a second. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, if you're on the replay, make sure to comment that and then ask your questions below so I can make sure to answer them. If you have any specific questions or want to share lab results or a lab number or something with me, send it through Messenger so I can help you a little bit more privately with that. If it's something like a whole entire lab panel, that probably needs to be in a more HIPAA compliant situation. If you want me to actually work with you on that, that's a little different story. But if you have a question or two about a number or marker or something, that is completely fine. I'm willing to help you out with that. Okay, so then we're going to go to something called the CBC, and that's the complete blood count. Actually, I'm going to start with a comprehensive metabolic panel just to show you some glucose numbers. And this is something that needs to be, it's like a more ideal range versus a normal range. So I'm going to look at my glucose level. So the normal range is 65 to 99. When I'm working with people, I am seeing people up to 99, 100, 101, and they're told that, it's fine. There's nothing to do, nothing you can really do about that and that kind of thing. And really the optimal range for normal is probably like 75 to 85. That's where you want to be. That is indicative of your the carbohydrates that you eat are managed by insulin pretty effectively at this point. But I have seen if you're creeping up at that higher end, low 100s, high 90s, what I start to see is that people, if they don't heed the warning and change their diet, they end up with a pre-diabetic diagnosis, and then maybe their A1C has creeped up. And that is the next thing I want to pull out is the A1C right here. Hemoglobin A1C. What that is a look back over the last 3 months of how well your average glucose, fasting glucose has been over the last 3 months, or your average glucose, I should say. So mine is a 4.5 and it should be less than a 5.7. 5.7% is when you start looking at a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. 5.1 is ideal. Less than 5.1 is where you want to be for that. If you are above that and you are struggling with weight loss, if you are struggling with brain fog and anxiety and poor stress management, you need to get your A1C and your glucose in check. Okay, that will be a factor in that. So just because it's below 5.7, like if I was a 5.6 or a 5.8, probably no one would say anything to me at doctor's office, but that would flag to me, and it does when I'm working with people one-on-one, that this is something we need to deal with and to help support it so it doesn't go off the rails and result in a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. Okay, so scrolling down to the CBC, I think. Sorry, this is never how I think it should be in order. Okay, so this is a CBC with differential, and all that means is the differential pulls out the type of your white blood cells. So this is looking at your white blood cells, your red blood cells, and then the different parts of them. So white blood cell count, we're at a 7.3, which is normal. You want it to be around 8. So like ideal is going to be like from 5 to 8. If you're outside of that range, even if it's not flagged red, what it could do is indicate that you're fighting a little infection of some kind, a low-grade infection, maybe nothing too major, but it's something that can be explains your fatigue, or you just can't kick that little bug or whatever it is. That could be what's going on here. RBCs, so the red blood cell count at 5.04, the normal range is like 4.5 to 5. So, I'm like little teeny bit over, so I'm getting a little bit nitpicky on that. But it can be when you have a red blood cell outside of that range, either high or low, it could be indicative of some B vitamin issues, maybe not being able to convert those B vitamins very well. My hemoglobin is elevated a tish by 0.2. I've never seen that happen before. And then the hematocrit, goes along with that. So it's not actually terribly out of range. I don't know. I've never seen it on my own test before, and I don't really see it otherwise either. So I really don't even know what to say about that. It's not something my doctor was worried about either. So then we go through, this is like basically the size and shape of the different types of blood cells. So those are all in the normal range. I'm not going to really go through all of those, but I'm going to go more through the white blood cells and talk about that. So white blood cells are made up of neutrophils, monocytes, basophils, lymphocytes, eosinophils. So what I like to look at are these percentages. Now, if you're in Canada, and maybe some other countries like in Europe, I don't know if you get the percentages, the differentials in there, but if you are looking at your neutrophils, you want that to be less than 60%. So like I said, this will be great. If you are watching this on replay, let me know. And then if you have your lab results, or you're kind of checking through, it'll be kind of interesting to see where you fall in this. If you have questions, just please let me know. So less than 60% for the neutrophils. And then for lymphocytes, you want to be less than 30%. So mine's a little bit elevated. Again, that's getting a little bit nitpicky. Through Christmas and all through January, I was struggling. I probably had a cough until the end of January, still dealing with it at the time of this labs. I was probably just fighting a little something, maybe some kind of viral thing. I did have some sinus infection situation going on, which was not fun, and that lingered and lingered. So that could very well be what is going on here. So that's what I would chalk that up to at this point, something viral going on. Then your eosinophils, those should be less than 3%. That's a little elevated for me. It was at a 4.4. That could be indicative of something parasitic and that's, gotten out of control. I haven't really noticed anything with that, but just dealing with gut health, making sure I'm drinking lots of fluid, getting lots of variety of vegetables, and making sure I'm not eating junk foods and stuff as much as possible. And that will help sort of normalize the gut. And then maybe taking some good probiotics to counterbalance what might be happening here. Now, if I had acute situations and symptoms, I would probably be more aggressive with that. But based on how I've been feeling gut health wise, I'm not too concerned about it. Same with basophils; that can be indicative of a parasitic infection if it's greater than 1. So I'm, pretty good there. And then the monocytes, so those should be less than 7%. I'm at 5.3. So not long ago, I had sort of a re-up of like a reinfection, or it flagged again my, potential mono that I had many years ago. My monocytes like maybe a year ago or I think it was a year ago, was about 12%. So it showed that there was something, flagged that maybe latent EBV virus was just laying in my system, and it was dormant. And then it popped up when I was going through some other things and, had an infection. So it just helps to kind of explain things. But the important part about looking at some of the ratios, like the neutrophils to lymphocytes, if those are closer to a 1-to-1 ratio versus a 2-to-1 ratio, then that will be indicative of an autoimmune process happening. And so this is why you can do these labs. Everybody would say my labs are all normal. But if I had, my neutrophils, say they were at 30% and my lymphocytes were at 32%, no one would say a word. And yet they would say that it's green. It would be in the green. No one would say a word about it. Yet I could be struggling with the autoimmune process, still dealing with fatigue, still dealing with gut health issues, still dealing with anxiety or depression or inflammation or whatever is happening, and never have anybody do anything about it and not support it. So, there's a lot that you can learn. And I know most people are not going to want to learn the minutia of all these labs, but that's why you need someone like me, someone who is going to be looking at things from a functional perspective and really deal with what is at hand and what is going on with a person. So this is the other thing I want to look at, was my insulin. I think it's in here. Most places don't do a fasting insulin. If you have never had one of those done, you should, even if your glucose looks normal. So ideally, we want that to be under 6. Mine is at a 7, so that's a little bit elevated. So this reference range is just that it's less than 18. So let's say your glucose is a 90, your A1C is a 5.7, and your insulin is a 10 or a 12, and you are struggling to lose weight, and you have poor sleep, and you have kind of some bad gut health, and you are just not able to kick the weight out of your midsection or whatever it is. Just that insulin number alone tells us that your insulin is not getting into the cells. It's not getting the carbohydrates you're eating into the cells to do the work that they need to do. And therefore, you are going to have trouble with weight loss. That's going to be the last thing to go unless your insulin is worked out. So there's all kinds of things that can be at play here when you're dealing with your labs. And I know that's a lot of information. But what I would do is, if you are watching this on the replay, go get your recent set of labs, do some comparisons. I know I went through some of this stuff really quickly. And if you have any questions or want to work more closely on that, please let me know, because that could be the difference just in and of itself. If it is just someone saying, you know what, it makes sense that you feel the way you do. If you need that vindication, I probably can give it to you and explain it to you, because part of the reasons people stay stuck is that they go on and on for years and years and years, getting told that everything is normal. Meanwhile, nothing is really being addressed that could be preempted, and you could prevent diagnosis that might be coming your way. So it's just so important to actually know your numbers and really understand that. And I have a course. I actually haven't pulled it up for a while, but I do have a course that's called Know Your Numbers. And so you can go through that and really diligently go through and check what's going on with your labs and see what you can do to remedy some of these situations. Sometimes it is really pretty easy. Might be some food changes. It might be some timing of food changes. It could be some supplements. And obviously, sometimes people need medication. Sometimes you need thyroid medication. And that is not the worst thing in the world to need. But anyway, you need to understand and know that if you've been struggling for years and you're not getting answers, you've been on thyroid meds, for example, and it still don't feel good, there's probably something like some hidden discrepancies in your labs that no one is really talking about. So if you need help with that information, reach out. I'm always here to help. I don't know. I just feel a struggle from so many of you. I've been there myself, and it keeps you stuck. It keeps you from not getting better. And it also, the worst part, it keeps you feeling hopeless so that you never are able to do anything about it. So change that today. Look through your labs, see if there's any discrepancies there, and reach out if you need help. I hope this has been beneficial to you. I hope you get some good information, and I'll be back next week for some more. All right, have a great day.